collection business is about 90% of our earnings. The private capital business, tough to quantify because it's both fees and promotes, but it's probably 5 or 6% of our business. And development is now, about 3% of our assets are in development. Maybe 4% of our assets are in development. So in the good old days, the AMB and Prologis platforms together developed about $5 billion a year. So back in 2007, 2008, AMB developed about $1.5 billion, and Prologis developed about $3.5 billion a year. Too much. Too much of the balance sheet was exposed to that. And if you looked at what that represented as a portion of each company's balance sheet, it was too much. And by the way, development is not just development. You have to add the land that you need to go along with it. So all of a sudden you have, $6-7 billion in your balance sheet or half your equity in development assets. And when the music stops, that's not a good place to be. So over time, the new Prologis has a more limited exposure to development. We're managing to 4 or 5% of the balance sheet overall. So we're talking about doing probably $1.5 billion to $2 billion of development this year, probably more like $2 billion. And we think the run rate over a cycle would be about $2.5 billion of development a year. So that's one thing. The level is getting to be less. And secondly, we're using funds in some of our development. So our own balance sheet exposure is less than that. So to make a long story short, as long as you manage your exposure to development, I think it's a pretty good business. And frankly, I don't think you can be in the global development business, global logistics business, without being a developer. Because other than the U.S. and Europe to a lesser extent, and Japan to a very small extent, there is no logistics business in China or Brazil or Mexico. So if you want to be in that business, you got to create the product. You just can't go buy it.
So how much of you